This is an optional part that's coming now that I love to do, and most of my clients that I edit for really like this. I like to pre-prep all of this, and what I do first is checking phase. So what I will do is grab the snare top mic and snare bottom mic, take a nice hard hit somewhere. I like flam hits. They are very they are easy to spot phase problems, at least for what I know. You can do it with just a normal hit as well. And by zooming in, as you can see, that's just by flipping the bottom snare. But I don't like to use this. So I have a script to my 6 key that flips the phase. So, okay, so and now we can check the kick. Check the toms. Check the hi-hat. And what I'm looking for is if it loses the body of the snare, then I flip it. As you hear clearly in the snare bottom mic. No body. Body. Okay, so we're on the ride. I can raise this a bit. The overheads. The Bloom Lane room. Stairwell room. I can't really tell there. So now when we have our phase corrected, we're going to save. And now I'll start with some pre-prepping that's very optional. What I like to do is start with the kick. This is something Jamie King did in his live mix. Let's open L2 and just go and make it flat. As you can see. I might have gone a little bit overboard, so let's redo that and just go a little bit lower, around 7. That's better. Still have a little bit of dynamic left. Okay, so and print. Now that is done, let's go over to the snare and do the same thing. By By doing this, you don't need to apply as much compression later on when you're mixing. And it's also much easier to use something like trigger to get an even trigger sound. So we're just going to do this on all the shells. Now we're going to prepare the rack and floor tom. So I'm just going to copy these, select them, and start by making cuts at every tom hit. So now I have made cuts at all the tom transients. I'm just going to cut this last bit and mute it. Then I'm going to select both, 0.010 at the length, 0.010 at fade out, and then apply. Then I choose everything again, and I normalize, and I glue, or consolidating. So now we have kind of trigger tracks of all the tom hits. And what we will do now is send this one to the rack, to 3/4 pre-fader, so we can lower that, send that to the floor, 3/4 and pre-fader, post FX. So press save. Now we have sidechaining. So we're going to go into the rack and get Pro MB and Pro G. And we are going to, on the rack tom, I have a, okay, so this is from the Pro Tools Fast Track. If you're not a URM enhanced member, you should really go check that out, because there is a lot of good info. Even if you're not a Pro Tools user, you should really check that out. It's going through all the bits you need to know about Pro Tools, as well as a huge amount of tips and tricks regarding editing and prepping. So we have FreeBand, the sidechain. You can hear. Oh, you can't hear if I have that on. Okay. Now you can hear. Hear the sidechain. Okay, so it's getting triggered by the sidechain. Then it takes away top end. Okay, we have the gate going now as well. So that's better. Okay, and now we use the gate, and I use the snare, and I bring up the release to like 1500 milliseconds, something like that. I think that's perfect. And now we have pre-cut up drums, or pre-cut rack tom. And then I use the floor tom, and I do the same. So I just copy over this, but I raise the release to like 30, and this to the same 30 aroundish, to get a little bit longer cut, so we can get more of that low end. I don't like doing this on kick and snare, or I like to do the Pro MB on snare, so we can just copy the snare top, bring it down here. Okay, we can call these rack tick, floor tick, and snare tick. But on snare, I usually just go on to trigger. I add that, and then I add a tick, and I slide this slightly to the left. Okay, and then I lower that, send that to the snare top mic, 3/4, pre-fader post effects. I do the same with the snare bottom, 3/4, pre-fader. So now we can select our Pro MB and just copy. Use the snare. The settings are here. Delete that. And now we have a clean snare. And if you want to go that extra mile, you can just copy the kick. Call that kick tick. Send that to the kick. 3/4. Slide that a little bit to the left. Copy. And just use kick cleanup. And it's basically almost the same settings as the snare. And there we have it. I hope you enjoyed this, guys. Now we've been going through some drum editing in Reaper, as well as some optional preparations that you can do, checking some phase, and yeah, preparations. That I love doing this. My clients love me doing this, and thank you, guys. See you next time.